Greetings Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back to the Maverick News Network, everyone. Great to have the Maverick family here and new viewers. You may have noticed that we have a new channel on Rumble, MNN3, the Maverick News Network 3. So that is up and running. This is not an official launch of that yet, but the graphics have been added and the channel is up and functional. If you are watching over there tonight, you may notice that the chat is not fully functional yet. So we will be making further revisions to that. Rumble Channel 2 has been decommissioned. And those of you who were hanging out on Rumble Channel 2, as you know, you've been given a new home on Twitch, which is a very cool platform. Very sophisticated technically, far more sophisticated than the Rumble channel. So there are features over there that we will be experimenting with as we continue to make changes to our whole operation here. A lot of news to cover tonight as we witness Donald Trump asserting his influence all over the world, especially right now in Latin America, where the U.S. launched a lethal attack against an alleged drug boat. We'll bring you the details on that. Also, Doug Ford, Ontario Premier, doing something today that reminded me very much of the Boston Tea Party, Canadian style. He dumped out a bottle of Crown Royal whiskey to protest that companies plan to close a bottling facility in Amherstburg, Ontario. We'll have the impact, the fallout, the criticisms, and the politics surrounding all of that for you as well as we begin to unpack the top news stories of the day, and we have quite a lot of stuff to cover. Stay with me.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, so right off the top, I think there's just so much to cover. Trump and his Space Force announcement today, but I think this development down in Latin America with the escalating tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela is probably what we should start the broadcast with, because we've seen this huge military buildup, and we have this video now just being released, which is why I'm just taking a moment to kind of cue things up here. But we now have this video of the U.S. military striking this alleged drug boat from Venezuela, heading to America carrying 11, they say, narco-terrorists. All 11, we're told, were killed in this strike. I've got the video. Let me, hang on before I run that. Let me just jump over to Truth Social to see if he probably has. Added more information over there. Here we go. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we can run it right out of there, actually. So I'll bring it up on Truth Social. I have it on a couple of other platforms as well. And Marco Rubio confirming this earlier today. Where are we here? I believe that's it. There it is. Okay, so he says earlier this morning, this is Trump on Truth Social, U.S. military forces conducted a kinetic strike against positively identified Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists in the Southcom area of responsibility. TDA is a designated foreign terrorist organization operating under the control of Nicolas Maduro, responsible for mass murder, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and acts of violence and terror across the United States and Western Hemisphere. The strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters transporting illegal narcotics heading to the United States. The strike resulted in 11 terrorists killed in action. No U.S. forces were harmed in this strike. Please let this serve as notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware, all caps, exclamation point. Thank you for your attention to this matter. How many exclamation points? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. At least 12. I had to take my shoes and socks off to count on my toes too because I didn't have enough fingers. That's a lot of exclamation points. He must be really, really, really upset. Here's the video. So that's the alleged drug boat. And it looks like there is cargo of some kind on board. Packages of some kind. And there's the hit. Wow. So, I guess that's evidence, perhaps proof. Is that justified? Is this truly about a new war on drugs, or is this how Donald Trump conducts his war on drugs? We've seen also earlier this month the Justice Department and State Department announcing it used to be, I think it was originally 15 million, then it was bumped up to 25 million. And now, earlier this month, or actually last month, because we're into September now, they increased that reward for Nicolas Maduro. Any information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro, they increased that reward to $50 million. Here. This was the announcement from Pam Bondi. Here it is.
Today, the Department of Justice and State Department are announcing a historic $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like TDA, Sinaloa, and Cartel of the Suns to bring deadly drugs and violence into our country. To date, the DEA has seized 30 tons of cocaine linked to Maduro and his associates, with nearly 7 tons linked to Maduro himself, which represents a primary source of income for the deadly cartels based in Venezuela and Mexico. Cocaine is often laced with fentanyl, resulting in the loss and destruction of countless American lives. The DOJ has seized over $700 million of Maduro-linked assets, including 2 private jets, 9 vehicles, and more. Yet Maduro's reign of terror continues. He is one of the largest narco-traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security. Therefore, we've doubled his reward to $50 million. Under President Trump's leadership, Maduro will not escape justice and he will be held accountable for his despicable crimes. If you have any information to bring this criminal to justice, call 1-202-307-4228 or go online.
I hate to say it, I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm sure there are drugs coming from that part of the world and so on, but I just don't know how serious it is. Like, does it really? Is it Maduro? Like, where's the proof? Just because we've seen the U.S. government, especially under Trump, doing some crazy things. Wants to take over Greenland, threatening Canada, 51st state, the manufactured fentanyl crisis on the Canada-U.S. border, the massing of troops along the U.S.-Mexico border as well. I know there are drug cartels over there, but to use the military in that fashion, that is not the normal approach. It's more of a policing matter, and I just talk about government overreach. I don't know. Now, if it's true, it's true. But if it's manufactured, and these days, when you're talking about geopolitics and the U.S., especially up against a country like Venezuela, which has been in the crosshairs for Trump for a long time, simply because it's such a left-wing government, that alone is justification in the minds of many within certainly the MAGA movement, certain elements of it. It's like, he's too left. He's too woke. He's too communist. He's a communist. Overthrow him. But we've seen that playbook unfold before. And I'm just calling me skeptical. I'm just not sure if it rises to that level of justification. I'm not saying it isn't true, but I'm not saying it is either. I'm saying we need to watch this one very carefully. Yeah. Really, really, really. That being said, we've seen what is the reaction from Latin America. Well, the president of Mexico says that they don't have any evidence to support what the U.S. administration is asserting. Their shine bomb saying, if you have proof, show it. Right here. I have a clip. I'm not exactly sure what she says in it, but we'll run it. Oh, did I just lose it? I believe I did. Well, let me get you Maduro then. Here we go. Here's Maduro. He says that the U.S. government has become, how did he phrase it? It's being taken over by the Miami Mafia. And he says, and now they've imposed their extremist Miami-centric vision and have Miami-fied U.S. foreign policy towards all of Latin America and the Caribbean, because threatening Venezuela is threatening the entire continent. He says whoever goes after one goes after all in Latin America and the Caribbean. I have the clip. I got to make it full screen. Here we go. Nicolas Maduro himself. Right there.
Como la mafia de Miami.
Says we're seeing how the Miami Mafia has taken political power in the White House and the State Department. We're seeing how the Miami Mafia,
y del Departamento de Estado.
And now they've imposed their extremist Miami-centric vision and have Miami-fied U.S.
Como han impuesto su visión mayamera extremista y han mayamizado la política exterior de los Estados Unidos
toward all of Latin America and the Caribbean, because threatening Venezuela is threatening the
toda
entire
América Latina y el
continent.
Caribe, porque amenazar a Venezuela es amenazar al continente entero. Quien se mete
Whoever goes
con
after
uno,
one goes
se mete
after
con
all
todos,
in Latin
en
America
América
and the
Latina y el
Caribbean.
Caribe. Y esa es la
And that's
conciencia
the
que hay
awareness
en
that
los pueblos
exists among the peoples
de
of
nuestra
our
región.
region.
Así que
So
han
they've Miami-fied, in the
en
worst
el
sense of
peor
of
concepto
political
del
extremism, the
extremismo
White House and
maligno,
the State
la
Department,
Casa Blanca y el Departamento de Estado. Y han
and they've
impuesto
imposed the worst versions of what they
la
call
peor
maximum
de
pressure
las versiones
on a country.
de lo que ellos llaman máxima presión frente a un país. Nosotros hemos
We've responded
respondido
by calling for national unity and preparing to preserve
convocando
national
a la Unión
sovereignty.
Nacional y preparándonos para preservar la soberanía nacional, la paz
Peace and
y la
territorial
integridad
integrity for as many
territorial
days, months as
en
it
todos los
takes, for
días,
as long as the U.S.
en todos los
empire
meses y en todo el
persists.
tiempo que pretende el imperio estadounidense aplicar estos
And using these
métodos
immoral,
inmorales,
illegal methods
ilegales que violan
that violate the United Nations Charter. So don't get me wrong, I'm very pro-American. Believe it or not, I am. I'm just very worried about what I see coming out of the current White House and the Trump administration and the way they're handling foreign policy. Very careful not to criticize Putin very much. And I would say even these steps that he has taken against China have not always been as anti-China as you might think, because I think really what's going on is Trump sees himself as one of three big leaders in the world that will participate in reshaping the geopolitical landscape, carving up the world into spheres of control. And he knows he's going to be one of them if it all plays out the way that the plan has been cooked up to create this new world order or new global order, however you want to phrase it. But that's what it is, and he's part of it. No question about it. You're seeing them use exactly that phrase. We saw it at the summit over the weekend in Shanghai. We've seen it at previous St. Petersburg economic summits in Russia, and at the end of the gathering in Shanghai over the weekend, Putin graciously remembered and reminded the others to join him at the next St. Petersburg Economic Summit, where they will continue to look ahead at reshaping the world. And in Shanghai, you saw most notably Modi from India there shaking hands with Putin and Xi, because Trump's tariffs have pushed India away after lengthy efforts to try to bring India into the fold within the Western economic system and make it an economic ally of the United States. Now they're being pushed away, and it hasn't taken very much to do that. The US dollar actually may well be under a lot of pressure. It is under pressure. Trump knows this. This is partly why he's using these tariffs to attack traditional US allies, is, go after Europe, go after Mexico, go after everybody, declare economic war on the world, including Canada. And all of these activities have created unprecedented levels of instability and uncertainty and eroded trust within the U.S. economic system, which is why people continue to run toward Bitcoin. Now, we've also seen another interesting gathering on the economic front within the last week over in Asia. At the Bitcoin Asia Summit, Now I'm just going to highlight what's going on with Bitcoin. The Bitcoin price here, it crashed a little bit. It crashed. Well, it did decline and price quite a bit. It was up at about a 124,000 US in valuation. About a week ago. Yeah, last week. I think it was at 124. Anyway, here's the price today. It's rebounding. It dropped to about 107 from 124,000 or 124,000 for a single Bitcoin. Now at 111, 106 and 70 cents USD. And it was at a peak there of 111. So we'll go back 5 days. 5 days ago, it was at 112. When was it at 124? 123, 332 on August 14th, a couple of weeks ago. And that's in U.S. funds. And it's down to 111 today, but it bottomed out there in this most recent decline and now rebound. Bottomed out at about 107. But it's on its way back up. Now, that being said, Forbes magazine, I took note of this because Bitcoin itself it's challenging the US dollar, even as countries begin to adopt it sort of as a default central bank digital currency for the world. Some people think it's actually the creation of the CIA, not the other story. But this is Forbes highlighting a speech given by sort of a Bitcoin guru who was at one time the head of Coinbase. Right here it says, Bitcoin has lost steam from its recent rally, falling back from an all-time high of 124 per Bitcoin amid a sudden crisis at the Federal Reserve. So this is referring to what I was just telling you about. Bitcoin's gone up about double from this time last year, with Bitcoin braced for $20 million to $28 million of daily buying pressure that some think could create the new Rockefellers or Rothschilds. So some people are thinking that this is going to replace the US dollar as the world reserve currency. And when that happens, it will have profound implications politically, socially, for the economy around the world, because it will really detooth the United States. It will take the ability for the United States to use economic warfare against the rest of the world, and the way that Trump is really doing it largely, I think. And maybe tariffs will be one of the only tools that will be left for the United States. Maybe that's why he's pivoted to tariffs instead of other economic tools like manipulation of interest rates and deficit spending. Maybe that's why. I'm not sure. Because the tariffs really economically don't make sense. You're going to see inflation like you haven't seen it in a long time as a result of what he's doing. It hasn't really kicked in yet. You're just beginning to see the results of that. But the Bitcoin issue highlighted here in this article, and then within this article, it highlights a speech made at Bitcoin Asia by, here, I'll show you the guy. I probably should have waited to run this a little later in the program, but he said this is the former chief technology officer at Bitcoin and crypto exchange Coinbase has predicted Bitcoin will end the Fed. Yeah, he gave this speech. The guy's name is Balaji Srinivasan, And I just came across this in the past week, and I want to share it with you tonight because he really does highlight something that is very real. Like, this is a serious threat to the current world order. We keep coming back to that, but Bitcoin is it. If this really holds true, it will replace, it will take away most of the United States' ability to control the world through economics. That in itself, I think, may become incredibly destabilizing, because if you have a superpower that has been using economic warfare in order to enforce the rules-based international order in many respects, you take that tool away, it only leaves military force. Anyway, this is his speech, he said, which is like, what happens when Bitcoin wins?
All right, guys. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about when Bitcoin wins, not if, but when. And when Bitcoin wins, actually, the battle begins. And I want to go through a few things, just to kind of talk through worldview and then next steps. So, what actually will happen when Bitcoin wins? I'm going to go through basically several different aspects of it in some scenarios. So first, if you're interested in these ideas, we actually have a conference in Singapore on October 3rd. So you should come out there, Network State Conference. So this is kind of the very quick version of these ideas. And then if you want to build with us, come to Network State 2025 in Singapore. Okay, so when Bitcoin wins, it ends the Fed. And what does that mean? When Bitcoin wins, the Fed loses control. The Fed is actually not just the central bank of the United States, but it controls many other banks, central banks worldwide, from Japan to Canada to the UK. And then those then in turn control banking licenses, and they can freeze and seize funds, and of course they can print money. And Bitcoin exists outside the Fed's video game.
That's important, because when you're talking even about somebody like Nicolas Maduro, they're seizing his assets. They've seized funds from Russia in their attempt to influence Russia, sort of, in the Ukraine-Russia war. They can seize assets straight out of bank accounts, make it impossible for even governments to conduct business internationally, because the U.S. Federal Reserve is so powerful and it has so much influence, because it controls the quantity of the world reserve currency. And also, as he indicates, they have influence and some control over not just U.S. banks, but even foreign banks. They even obviously have some influence over what happens with Canada's central bank.
Okay, so the Fed can freeze and seize everything within this network of banks, but it can't freeze and seize Bitcoin. It can't introduce 21 million plus, more than the 21 million Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin wins, the Fed, further? Yep. When Bitcoin wins, the Fed loses root control, okay?
Hello, traders. In this video,
That's right. Hang on a second here. We have to get past this. Seconds. And here we go. We're back.
Gyrating rates get replaced with predictable policy.
Yeah, so he's
Top
talking
right
about
there
gyrating
is
interest
Fed
rates.
interest rates, and they go like this, and that's just a function of feels. There's actually a Wall Street Journal article, for example, that actually there's a Fed governor who admits that what he felt like in the morning, he decided, okay, we're going to raise rates like half a point, and it's literally just feels. They scroll the feed, and they put in, the interest rates, and it's not. Oh, really? Okay. All right, let's go with that. When Bitcoin wins, all right, is that better? All right, let's do that. Great. Okay. So gyrating rates get replaced with predictable policy. What happens is you go from the interest rates going up and down and the Fed just monkeying with everything to something which is algorithmic and predictable monetary policy, which is Bitcoin. And that's just this enormous leap forward in terms of the ability to plan for the future and not buy something and have rates hike to the moon or crash to the ground You don't have the entire world thinking about what the Fed is going to do and the entire financial system architected on reading the tea leaves. Instead, it's very clear what the issuance rate is going to be, and so you've got algorithmic monetary policy. Then when Bitcoin wins, payments become packets. Okay, so this is Wireshark showing the Bitcoin protocol, and you can see that essentially there's no reference to a bank, there's no reference to a state. This is purely the network. Payments have become packets. And this is essentially this international network as opposed to an individual states network. When you actually get under the hood and realize what's happening here, it's actually really amazing. When Bitcoin wins, by the way, it wins around the world. It doesn't just win in any country. This is a map from 2024. You can argue maybe the percentages in this country or that country, but you can't argue with the fact that Bitcoin is a global phenomenon. It's not the state, it's a network. And when Bitcoin wins, it can win very fast. So when the faith in currency in Lebanon went to zero, when the full faith in credit in the Lebanese pound went to zero, Bitcoin was there, and it just went vertical like this, okay? So, hodl. When Bitcoin wins, it can win very fast. So next, when Bitcoin wins, Keynesianism falls like communism. And so basically when Bitcoin wins, treasuries will fade. People talk about US treasuries and more generally Western bonds as the risk-free rate of return, but really they're kind of the return-free risk. And if you've looked at the last 5 years, it's been the worst bond market ever with yield spiking. And if you don't know what this is, just look it up if you want. But essentially, this is something where people just they need to have a very high rate in order to hold on to US and Western government debt. And this is only going to get worse as inflation picks up. So you stop saving in US government bonds and you start saving in the hardest money around, which is Bitcoin. When Bitcoin wins, also real estate falls in real terms. So in the West, since the 2008 financial crisis, the Fed has been printing money to buy mortgage-backed securities, thereby taxing the population in multiple ways, first diluting them down to the printing and then bidding against them in the market, which is why it's so absolutely crazy in terms of where the housing prices, rental prices are in the West. This is something which is a upward redistribution of wealth to asset owners and especially real estate owners and property owners at the expense of renters and those coming up in their career. And the counterattack on this is when Bitcoin wins, real estate falls in real terms, and people stop actually, using houses as an investment, and they invest in Bitcoin. They hold Bitcoin. Really, they store value in Bitcoin. In houses, apartments, that's for utility. So when Bitcoin wins, fiat also faces global competition. If you know what happened with local news, when all the local newspapers got online, suddenly their local geographical monopolies of paper newspapers didn't matter anymore. They all had to compete with each other, and most of them failed. And only the global papers, the Wall Street Journals and Financial Timeses and so on, survived. And then they too essentially collapsed against social media and a truly internet-first media. And the same thing is about to happen with the introduction of all these stable coins around the world. As all these coins go on chain, and they have to, all these local currencies go on chain, they're going to have to, then they're all going to be in competition with each other. And the ones with bad monetary policies, anybody in their country, they have no geographical monopoly of cash anymore, just like the newspapers lost their geographical monopoly of paper. The distribution, the trucks, that didn't matter anymore, just like the distribution of the paper notes doesn't matter. So every currency, every national currency is in competition with every other national currency, and most of them won't survive, only the very best ones will. And so that means cryptocurrency will take over, because eventually, just like Twitter and social media beat NYT and Wall Street Journal, and those in turn beat local media, so too Bitcoin beats stable coins, the best stable coins which beat the bad currencies. So fiat faces global competition, and that means states face accountability in a way they never had before. There's actually now a check on what they can do. When Bitcoin wins, fiat billionaires get flipped. And what that means is, several years ago at Coinbase, we calculated that somewhere between $100,000 and $1 million per Bitcoin, half the world's billionaires become crypto. And that means all fiat fortunes get diluted down, because there's around 2,000 something billionaires, and around somewhere between $100,000 to $1 million per Bitcoin, you have 2,000 something new crypto billionaires. So all wealth becomes crypto, all property becomes cryptography, and that means global wealth becomes crypto. And so that's what we call the billionaire flippening. And that's kind of already underway. And you're going to see that in the next few years. And that means genuinely risk tolerant capital, because that is capital that accrues to individuals as opposed to, you know, things that are attached to the Western state or accumulated in nonprofits. It's really for those who are contrarian but right and bucking the system, as opposed to those who are conforming to the system. Bucking. Okay.
Okay, so I won't run the whole thing. If you want to see it, you can find the entire clip online. There's about another 8 minutes of it. The point is, if Bitcoin wins, or when Bitcoin wins, it flips the entire economic system, and it flips the political system. It flips the world if it actually does end up winning, because it takes control completely away from governments. Not just control over the currency, but control over social programs, even to a great degree. He says that it ends Keynesian economics, for instance. And that has been the go-to approach for governments in the West for a long time, probably most of my life, in order to stabilize the economy, to take the big highs and lows out of the crashes and the bulls. And that's because when the economy slows down, the Keynesians say that's when you need to begin to spend more. Government needs to loosen up the purse strings and even print money in order to stimulate the economy by making sure there is enough liquidity in the market, and you stimulate that with government programs, make work projects like build roads or spend money. That's largely what the Trudeau government was trying to do in Canada. They, in my opinion, just didn't go about it in the right way, because they were spending money in the wrong ways, not so much on public infrastructure and public works programs, but on other things that didn't have the lasting impacts that investments, true investments in infrastructure and so on, can have. But the point here largely is that Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, very destabilizing potentially to not just the West, but the entire world. And it could be one of the things that creates a path toward this new world order. And I know a lot of people very worried about being tracked using digital currency and so on. I'm not entirely convinced that all of this is actually going to happen, that Bitcoin will win, because there's really very little nothing really backing up Bitcoin other than the fact that it has been adopted and that people seem to believe in it. But we have seen in history as well, bubbles created, massive bubbles, people sucked in to, all kinds of different financial ideas over the years. A lot of scams are out there. And this does have the potential to completely go bust and go to zero. It could happen. And that's one of the things that makes all of this very destabilizing, is that if there is a crash, and there will be crashes with Bitcoin, because it is very much free market. So you'll get highs and you'll get extreme lows, and government will not be able to intervene in the ways that it has traditionally, by printing money, controlling money supply, controlling interest rates in the way that they have. They can't manipulate it in order to benefit society in the ways that they think that they're benefiting society. You think you've got it bad now. It's a big scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. Yeah, they shouldn't be spending the money that they're spending, because they don't really practice true Keynesian economics. They keep on spending when they're not supposed to spend. In good times, governments are supposed to cut back on spending and balance their budgets and run surpluses to build up reserves for the good times. Or build up reserves rather for the crashes. But they don't do that because people want free stuff. and they give it to them in every election. They make promises and then they deliver in order to buy votes. So therein lies the real problem. It's corruption, and we're all to blame because we all belly up to the public trough and strap on the old feed bag, don't we? Whether it's employment insurance, health care, some other kind of government program, training. I know lots of people who have scammed the systems over the years. I'm sure you probably do too. So when it all comes crashing down, maybe we only have ourselves to blame. I don't know, but we also elected a guy. Well, we didn't here in Kanakistan, and not the guy that I'm talking about anyway, Donald Trump, but Americans did. They elected a guy who sees the writing on the wall, at least at the moment, because he's got his own meme digital currency, Trump coin. Here, I'll show you. You know, since taking office, Trump has increased his personal wealth, I believe, by at least $3 billion, something in that realm. Is this it here? No. No. Let me get here. Find it here. And we've got an audio issue. Let me get the audio off. There we go. That takes care of the audio problem. All right. So, is it here? No, that's the old one. There it is. No, that's the Bitcoin price. Hang on. Too many tabs open. So 111,000 for Bitcoin. What's the Trump coin worth tonight? Right there. $8.38 US. 838 for a Donald Trump crypto coin. Why is Trump's price up today? Well, there's a story about it here. Now, it has fluctuated quite a bit here. This is just today. And there's so much of this stuff trading. We're in like over $1 billion worth of this stuff has traded. 609 million in volume traded in Trump coins. 546, so almost $500 million worth of Trump coins trading in any 24-hour period. And that's why the Donald has so much moolah. But the reason I'm not entirely convinced that crypto is ultimately going to change the world in the way that some people think, in a positive way, it may just turn into the worst depression in human history, because I think people right now they've got bull fever. They think that there's no end in sight to this. They think it's just going to keep going up. And I smell a crash coming, because people have gotten stupid about it. The Trump meme coin alone is bad enough, but this tells me that we have a problem. This is the fart coin. Oh yeah, you heard me right. The fart coin. It's a meme coin trading at 79 cents. And the people who created this about a year ago, they had their initial offering. They're beyond wealthy now, having convinced people to invest over $1 billion into this fart coin. And in any given 24-hour period, they're trading about 180 to 190 million dollars worth right here. In fact, this 24-hour period, the past 24 hours, they've traded $212 million worth of fart coins. And if you go back 1 year, you can see that, it's gone up and down. So people have made and lost maybe even fortunes on fart coins. That makes me worried. Because there's nothing backing that up. Nothing at all. The only thing backing up fart coins is a lot of hot air.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
We're back. So the economy is front and center. Now we've seen the courts come out, and there was a court ruling saying that most of Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal. They're going to appeal. For now, they are remaining in place. I don't know how far this is going to go, but I suspect all the way maybe even to the Supreme Court. And the trade war is having serious impacts on Canada. Today, Ontario Premier Doug Ford was commenting on the decision by the company that bottles Crown Royal whiskey. They've announced that they're going to shut down their bottling facility in Amherstburg, Ontario, which is only about 45 minutes from where I am tonight. It's a little bit closer to the Windsor-Detroit border. And Doug Ford's very, very upset. You know what? I'm gonna run the longer clip here. Well, here I've got this one. So this is going viral. What Doug Ford did today, because he stood at a podium and warned the company that he's going to make them feel the pain when they actually follow through and take about, I think it's about 200 jobs away from the people who have been working at that facility in Amherstburg all these years. And look at what he does. Look at what he pours out.
The geniuses over at Diageo, okay, so not everyone knows what Diageo is, but everyone knows what Crown Royal is. These people are devastated. In a small town, you get rid of 180 people. So you know something, a message to the CEO in France, you hurt my people, I'm going to hurt you. You're going to feel the pain in February when these people don't have a paycheck. And I'm going to stand up for the people of Ontario, and I encourage all of Canadians, all of Ontarians, stand up for the people, because you don't know if you're next. But the thing that ticks me off, I get it. I get that companies move back and forth. But what I don't get, when you're someone's largest customer in North America, you're going after the largest customer. You know something? I always say smart people aren't too smart, and you guys are about as dumb as a bag of hammers for doing this. So, you know something? I found a bottle, and I don't even drink, of Crown Royal, right? I see that Crown Royal. I saw it at home. So this is what I think about Crown Royal. That's what they could do. And I think everyone else should do the same thing. Start supporting companies that make whiskey here by Ontario people. That's what we need to do, is support each other.
So he's pretty upset. Now, I have to say, I don't blame him a bit. He's up there trying to do what he has to do to support and defend Ontario and Canadian workers. Conservative premier. For some reason, maybe it's because of what he did during the pandemic and the way that he followed through with mandates, lockdowns, and all that. I wasn't a big fan of him then at all. But I can't blame him for standing up for workers. What does it seems confusing. I kind of understand why they're doing it, because a lot of these guys are 51st staters, but I'm seeing just, it's so predictable. Doug Ford is in the crosshairs of all the conservative, not all of them, the paid conservative influencers who don't like him. And so predictably, it doesn't matter what he does. They'll just frame it in a way that they call him out and try to make him look bad. So I don't even know who this guy is, but he's another one. Kirk Lubimov, And guys, it isn't that I'm not a conservative. However you want to, maybe we need to define conservative one of these nights, because I don't think these guys are conservatives. Not really. Kirk Lubimov, he says, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is losing it. He is full on triggered. He says the Crown Royal is shutting its bottler in Ontario and moving to US. So he got a bottle of its whiskey from his home that he apparently doesn't drink. And you heard what he said. You guys are about as dumb as a bag of hammers for doing this. This is what I think about Crown Royal. And then he dumps it out. We'll run it again.
Always say smart people aren't too smart, and you guys are about as dumb as a bag of hammers for doing this. So, You know something? I found a bottle, and I don't even drink, of Crown Royal, right? I see that Crown Royal. I saw it at home. So this is what I think about Crown Royal. That's what they could do. And I think everyone else should do the same thing. Start supporting companies that make whiskey here by Ontario people. That's what we need to do, is support each other. You know something? I'm going to make this even come out quicker.
This is the longer version.
I always say smart people aren't too smart, and you guys are about as...
He took him a while to get all that whiskey out of there, okay? What else is he supposed to do? He's supposed to go, oh, well, okay, that's great. We're glad the jobs are leaving, or we just give up. He's the Premier of Ontario. He's supposed to fight for the workers. Now, I know what some people are going to say. Oh, see, you got to give up because Trump's tariffs, that's why they're moving to the United States. And if he just wouldn't talk so tough and just be nice, and it's all our fault, and we should have just shoot ourselves in the head. No. In fact, anybody that's telling you that this is simply because of the tariffs knows nothing. They don't know what they're talking about. The truth is, this whole thing has been in the planning stages with this company for about 3 years before Trump even came back into power, before there was even any talk about these tariffs. So Kirk Lubimov, I don't know. What do you want him to do, Kirk? Just give up. Say, good job, Trump, or good job, Diageo. Glad those jobs are leaving. I don't get these guys. I don't. It defies logic. I'll tell you this too. Here's the other element of truth. Even if Canada became the 51st state, those jobs probably would still go to the US, probably would have gone before, and it's probably even less likely that those jobs could be saved in Amherstburg and many others as well if you eliminate that border. One of the main reason that company is moving the bottling plant, not their entire operation. They're still manufacturing. I believe they have a manufacturing facility out in Manitoba. So they produce still whiskey out in Manitoba. I'm not sure where else they have facilities. They're not shutting down everything in Canada, the bottling facility. The reason they're doing that is because there's an industry trend where they're moving bottling plants closer to their major customer bases. Although Doug Ford pointed out quite rightly today that every year Canada alone purchases about $750 million worth of Crown Royal. Just our country. And they're leaving Canada with their bottling facility, eliminating those jobs in Amherstburg. Total payroll there, I think it's something like 16 million. Now, if Canada becomes the 51st state, now it would just be a state. Now you don't have the Canada-US border to contend with, and there is very little in the way of regulation governing trade between states. There can be some, but not a lot. There are excise taxes, and things vary a little bit from state to state, and sales taxes, which are generally applied evenly and so on. But because the industry trend is to move bottling facilities closer to the major markets where they have the most customer base, which is in the US, more likely that because you don't have trade barriers of any kind in place, there's no incentive for them to keep that plant in Amherstburg open, unless the costs of production there are much lower than they would be at a facility in the US. And most factories in the US, because the population there has always been so much larger, it's 10 times the size of Canada, the factories there, generally you can just turn the production up a little bit. They have extra capacity built into the production facilities that they can just make use of, and they replace whatever production we have going on up here in Canada. And that isn't because of our trade barriers. That's largely because of the trade barriers that we face going the other way. So we just haven't built up factories and things to that size. And you have to compete one way or the other. And what you have going on across the United States from state to state to state is they put incentives into place to try to attract companies. That's how Texas has been so successful. They keep their taxes very low. They incentivize the investment into their state. They have for decades now, with low taxes and even subsidies in order to attract companies to bring them in so that they build in the state there. And Texas has been, over the past couple of decades, a very fast growing state, but you have to incentivize it. So then you still have to compete. And with the way things are right now, those jobs would be more likely to go to the US, regardless of the tariffs. And that is the actual economic reality of it. It isn't just about the tariffs at all. That probably is it's going to be a factor in the decision-making process. It's not the final word. Let's take another short break. We'll come back. We've still got more ground to cover tonight. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's move on. Space Command, Space Force. Trump announcing today at this big news conference that they had at 2 p.m. It was a big one. Here's a big one. Announced that he's moving Space Command headquarters to Alabama from Colorado. You know why? Mail-in voting. What? No, it's true. What? What justification is that? Why would he do that? What's mail-in voting got to do with choosing a location for Space Force HQ? Well, it's political patronage. It's payback. And see, what happened is when Trump first created the Space Force back in 2018, and then all them late night talk show hosts started to mock him and make fun of him, only to realize that he actually had a good idea. His original plan was to put it in Alabama, and then Biden came into office, and as Space Force took root and became a real deal, Biden moved it to Colorado. But over in Colorado, they have mail-in voting, and Trump lost Colorado, and he don't like Colorado too much, but he likes Alabama because he won the election down there. And so the whole thing is really about politics, not so much about efficiency. And so Space Force HQ's being relocated. And here's Trump today in that news conference. And I don't know why I'm talking like this, except it just seemed appropriate at the moment. Here he is.
Make your mind up on Chicago, though?
Well, we're going in. I didn't say.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what?
When you lose,
this is the wrong clip. This is him saying they're going into Chicago. He don't like Chicago either. You can assess why. Anyway, Space Force going to Alabama. That's the bottom line here. Now, this was the next story. This is about Trump and the National Guard, which we've seen used in D.C. A lot of people don't like it. A judge has just ruled as well that Trump's previous use of the National Guard in Los Angeles was illegal, but Trump don't care. They have been ordered to stop enforcing the law, although the judge stopped short. I'm not reading from notes. This is off the top of my head. The judge stopped short of requiring a withdrawal of the National Guard troops, but he has told Trump and the administration, National Guard, they're no longer supposed to enforce law. We'll see where that goes. The Trump administration has said they are going to appeal that, and they are still pushing forward. It's full steam ahead. Pedal to the metal, baby, because they are going into Chicago next.
Up on Chicago, though?
well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing.
Yes, it is.
I have an obligation. When we lose, when 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks, and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called D.C., District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. If the governor of Illinois would call me up, I would love to do it. Now, we're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it because I have an obligation to protect this country. And that includes Baltimore. I saw where Governor Moore was asking me to take a walk down the street of Baltimore. Well, Baltimore is a very unsafe place. It's rated number 4 in the city, one of the most unsafe places anywhere in the world. But, you know, we took care. This was a beautiful thing that happened in Washington because we showed that it could be done.
Well, Morgan, earlier, Trump's takeover of Los Angeles was illegal. Now, this past June, you may remember, the president deployed 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines to L.A. after thousands of people took to the streets to protest the president's immigration policies. Well, meanwhile, people have also flooded the streets in Chicago. This happened yesterday. This was all in an effort to stop Trump from expanding his federal law enforcement surge to the Windy City. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander joins us now from his post following all of this. So first, let's talk about this ruling out of California. Now, what does it mean? Does it have any implications for what's to come?
Yeah, Vicky, it's a good question, and this has obviously been a very contentious topic. This crime crackdown that the president has enforced, first in Los Angeles, California, and now he's discussing not too dissimilar crackdowns taking places in places like Baltimore, in Chicago, and in other Democratic-led cities. Specifically to the ruling by this federal judge, they found that President Donald Trump, his administration, violated federal law by sending those National Guard troops to California. In effect, the decision did not require that those troops depart, and its enforcement will begin. The order goes into effect September 12th, so just a couple of weeks from now. But it does come after there was a huge flashpoint there in Southern California over the arrival of these national law enforcement officials, the National Guard. We're hearing from Gavin Newsom, the Democratic governor of California, who had been pushing back against this effort. He posted in all caps today, "Donald Trump loses again." So this gives you some sense of where the courts are on this at the moment, but certainly it's something that needs to play out further, and it's something that's going to continue to remain a flashpoint as the president considers other cities and states where he wants to do similar efforts.
Well, Peter, the president has specifically been targeting Chicago on his social media platform, calling it the most dangerous city in the world. Give us a fact check here. What kind of data is he using to support that, and what could a crackdown there look like?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. He refers to about at least 54 people who were shot in Chicago over the weekend, 8 people killed by our accounts. There were at least 54 people shot, and 7, we were told, by law enforcement on the ground who were killed there. The president also noted that Chicago is the murder capital of the world. The fact check on that is that it is false. Tijuana, Mexico, according to the best analysis that we could find, is the most dangerous in the world. And as you look at a map of the United States, the most dangerous cities in terms of crime in the U.S. right now, Chicago doesn't even rank in the top 10 among the cities that do have some significant issues, at least as it relates to danger. The only one in the top 10 worldwide, as the president has said Chicago is Memphis right now. But it's certainly a place where the president sees political capital, and he's leaning forward in this effort. Vicky.
Okay, so why do some people want to be the 51st state again? You have the president of the United States saying that Chicago is the most dangerous city in the world. And even if it isn't, you've just seen this map that they put up on NBC News, a national newscast out of the US of A, showing you all these cities where they have problems with murders on a pretty massive scale, much worse than what we experience here in Canada. You've also got the country being flooded with drugs from Latin America, apparently billions of dollars worth of cocaine laced with fentanyl. It's all in the U.S. And you want to join that. And Trump is concerned about Canada being a national security threat, or Mexico being a national security threat to the U.S. I'm thinking that the U.S. and all these guns and all this violence and all these gangs and all these murders and all these drugs, maybe they are the ones who pose an existential threat, or at least a security risk, to us up here in the Great White North.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Nicolas Maduro, worried about sovereignty. Mexico, worried about sovereignty in the face of pressure from the Trump administration. Canada, worried about sovereignty in the face of pressure from the Trump administration. Things are kind of crazy under Biden, but wow. And then because of the trade war, the first thing Trump went after, interestingly, was the digital services tax. And Carney agreed to get rid of it. But tonight we are seeing that there is an open letter to Carney from dozens of experts, academics, and organizations urging him to defend Canada's digital sovereignty from the whims, as they put it, of the Trump administration. I will show you. Here's the letter. Letter to the Prime Minister of Canada from organizations and individuals concerned about Canada's digital sovereignty. It's a serious issue because those big social media digital platforms, like especially Facebook, YouTube, X, they can not only influence, but they can actually sway and determine the outcomes of elections with their algorithms, with policies on content moderation, censorship. It says here, open letter standing on guard for Canada's digital sovereignty. Congratulations on the recent 100-day milestone since your election. We're encouraged by your new government's promise of a new direction for Canada. For too long, Canada's federal government, whether liberal or conservative, has missed the opportunity to lead on digital policy innovation. We understand the challenge of trying to protect Canadians in the face of the actions of the Trump administration while simultaneously building a more resilient Canada, less dependent on the U.S. A key aspect of the latter is digital sovereignty. Canada cannot afford to delay action or move backwards on this front for fear of White House reaction. This is all because Trump was demanding that they get rid of the digital services tax. We will be hard-pressed to build Canada strong, let alone to avoid becoming the 51st state, if we surrender more of our digital sovereignty to American tech giants, the wealthiest corporations in the world. Yes, true. This is not merely a question of consumer harms or corporate dominance. It is a constitutional question. Algorithms, cloud infrastructure, and digital trade rules now function as de facto law. Canada must legislate a sovereignty framework before engaging in binding international commitments that could otherwise embed foreign governance logics into our infrastructure. Canadian democracy cannot be free if our digital public sphere is overrun by foreign influence and made toxic for profit. I have been saying this for some time. You want to talk about foreign interference in our elections? There it sits right in front of you every day on your phone, on your computer screen, on your tablets. And it's coming directly from the United States and other foreign governments through the internet. How much of that can any democracy, any country, any sovereign government take? It says, nor will we prosper as a zone of extraction, whether of oil, timber, minerals, or of data, intellectual property, or talent. We are a sovereign country with one of the world's largest digital markets, a highly creative and connected population, diverse in its official languages and cultural expressions and values, and yet we are being left no choice but to accept the unquestioned and unchallenged technological dominance of the U.S. and all the harms this entails. We must take a different path as we remake our relationship with the U.S. In its trade deal with Trump, the U.K. did not back down on its digital services tax or its Online Safety Act. We can draw lessons from Finland, Estonia, and Taiwan, which have hardened their digital infrastructure and public spheres against attack or domination by a belligerent neighbor. But Canada must chart its own path through a doctrine of technological non-alignment, cooperating internationally while retaining full domestic authority over our data, algorithms, and cloud infrastructure. Now, I can go on about this, and you can sit there, and I'm probably predicting what I'm about to read in the chat if I go look, at least on one side anyway, where people are going to say, well, it's censorship. No. Yes. Yes and no. You have to understand that it's about more than censorship. It's about controlling information. I think what's maybe even worse than censorship is manipulation of distribution and reach and content. And if you're Elon Musk and you control X, you, in many ways, are the most powerful man in the world. Not only is he perhaps the richest, he also has what has really emerged maybe to become the most powerful social media platform in the world. And he can elevate or suppress any kind of post, any type of information. He can determine the outcomes of elections by controlling how much of this message or that message gets out, how he shapes it. Make no mistake, they're doing it right now. They're picking winners and losers. Yes, he is. They all are. Technology. It's a new game out there, man, and this is the new information warfare. This is not like the old propaganda days where they would drop leaflets on the enemy from airplanes. This is way more sophisticated than that. This is way beyond what we got with Tokyo Rose and those broadcasts meant to demoralize the troops. This is very sophisticated. I absolutely agree that we need to look at this more closely. I'm not saying I have the answers, all of them here tonight, but even our experiment here with our chats into free speech have been something of a challenge, haven't they? And that's really the simplest level of all of this. It goes on here and says that in this context, this letter urges the federal government to move forward on 14 proposed priority action measures for resetting Canada's digital policy agenda to better serve Canadian interests, rein in foreign tech giants' negative impacts, and strengthen Canada's digital sovereignty. These measures must be sequenced within a sovereignty-first strategy, legislation to establish Canadian authority over digital systems, followed by institutional capacity building, and only thereafter engagement in trade or international negotiations. Of course, we still need to be very careful that we not give too much power or control to our own federal or provincial or even municipal governments in this regard. It can go too far the other way as well. The trick is finding the right formula, the right recipe, the right balance. Specifically, it says here these proposals are to launch a focused participatory public dialogue anchored in a legislated digital sovereignty framework on AI adoption, which is another layer of complexity that has been added to this, and digital governance. After conducting a full public consultation with Canadians and experts to inform effective AI regulation, pass laws specifically regulating AI technologies, provide Canadians with the background analysis supporting the government's proposed investments in AI, conduct and publish an independent expert full stack threat risk assessment of Canada's digital and AI infrastructure. It goes on. There's a whole bunch of them here. If nothing else, this highlights the need to examine this in a more serious way. And it is dangerous, I think, to just let our guard down and simply leave the country wide open to foreign government influence on the Canadian side in the way that we have, apparently, simply because of trade issues alone. But you see, the United States is Godzilla. They're so powerful. They have the economy, and they have F-35s and nukes. And when Trump says jump, our prime ministers throughout history have generally considered how high they should, because we live right next door. And these are unprecedented times. Where's it going? I don't know, folks. Most challenging of times, that's for sure. All I know is Canada's worth saving, and I hope every day that we manage to do that, because people, as a result of everything going on social media these days, and this is why we have to be very careful about letting too much influence come from the US side, because even they don't know what the hell is true anymore. Even the president doesn't know what's real. No, it's true that he doesn't know what's true. Ann Applebaum today on a podcast, I don't know if I have it here, but she said, I noticed the headline. I haven't watched the video yet. She's a very smart lady, political commentator, right? And she says that Americans no longer care about truth. I think that was even apparent in the interview we did the other night about the revelations surrounding the murder of Sheriff Buford Pusser's wife in Adamsville, Texas. The sheriff, the legendary lawman from Tennessee who inspired all the Walking Tall movies. And now the new investigation down there shows that he very likely murdered his own wife. And so this hero is actually a killer, if all of that information is true. And I don't know, probably is. But people don't want to hear that because, well, it's very inconvenient now because they have a festival in the guy's name. They give away awards to other lawmen and have for decades. And they have, rides and candy floss and a whole economy in that town based on tourism attracted by the whole legend of Buford Pusser, the lawman of Adamsville. And so why kill the legend, they say? Well, there's always truth and justice, even if it is inconvenient. But it's a very American thing, isn't it? Yeah, the Buford Pusser Museum. I was saying to my parents over the weekend, down at that museum in Tennessee, they have the Buford Pusser death car on display. It's an American thing. I've seen it all. You see it in these American cities, in these museums. I've gone to a lot of car museums, and it's sometimes they have a death car there. You go to the Volo Museum just outside Chicago, and they have a whole thing about the James Dean death car, which actually is missing the Porsche, but they have a replica of the death car. They have, a whole thing about it, and they've actually offered a reward for the recovery of James Dean's death car. It's just this dark side of American culture that fixates on these negative things. But in the case of this one, they idolized and put this lawman, Buford Pusser, up on a pedestal. He died back in 1974, died in a car crash later. His wife shot, the whole Walking Tall story anyway. But now people are like, I don't know what to do about that. I'm going to follow up on that story, by the way, and find out where things end up now that this new information has come out. Very strange, and yet in many respects not unexpected. But when I say that Trump doesn't know what's real anymore either, I mean it. And it was on full display today. You don't believe me? Well, Trump asked by Peter Doocy, this reporter, about a video that had been released earlier of, I guess, a contractor throwing stuff out of an upper floor White House window. And Trump was asked about it, and he says it's all AI. I will run the clip. I think this is it here. Let me show you. There we go. So here's Trump saying that Peter Doocy is referencing a fake AI video.
Something completely different, but about a big viral social media trend over the weekend. How did you find out over the weekend that you were dead?
Oh, there's this one too.
You see that?
No.
People didn't see it for a couple days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really?
You didn't see that?
I have heard it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape. No, I heard that. I get reports. Now, you knew I did an interview that lasted for about an hour and a half with somebody, and everybody saw that was on one of your competitors.
Something completely different.
Okay, sorry. That was the wrong clip, but it's still, I was going to go to it anyway, so glad that I ran it. So some people don't know whether he's alive or dead, or they're trying to convince you that he's dead. Here's Ducey asking about the contractor dumping stuff out the window. Here we go.
You can't. They're bulletproof. And number one, they're sealed. And number two, each window weighs about 600 pounds. You have to be pretty strong to open them up. No, that has to be. Where was the window? Let me see.
He shows the video. Trump is saying he can't do it because the windows are all sealed upstairs. And so Ducey goes over and shows him the video.
Maybe for the renovations.
Which is the window?
It looks like this is on the 15th Street side, I think. So right here.
Yeah, those windows are sealed. Those windows are they're all sealed. You can't open them.
What you're saying regarding the federal.
It's the kind of thing they do. And one of the problems we have with AI, it's both good and bad. If something happens really bad, just blame AI. But also they create things, you know, it works both ways. If something happens that's really bad, maybe I'll have to just blame AI. But there's truth to it because I see so many phony things. I saw something as I was growing up from the time I was a baby till now. I said, you can't.
So see if I can find the video here. Scroll down. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Hang on, I'll come back and I'll show you, and then I'll tell you what's really going on. Okay, stay with me.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so I have it. So here's the video in question that went viral. Look at that window right there to the left. See? Throwing stuff out the window.
Got another one? Let me see. Yeah, let's say in that little outhouse on the end. Oh, somebody there, right? Right now, right? Oh, there you go. You got it? You zoomed in?
Make it bigger. So here it is again. Bigger for you.
Got another one? Let me see. Yeah, let's say in that little outhouse on the end. Oh, somebody there, right? Right now, right? Oh, there you go. You got it? You zoomed in? I guess that's one way to clean out. This is crazy, man.
So I'm not sure why it even matters that much, but I guess it does to some people. This video went viral. Trump is saying that that's AI. The problem is that the White House had previously confirmed, other White House officials had previously confirmed that it's a real video, that it really did happen, and that it is a contractor throwing stuff out a window. But at the same time, those windows are normally sealed. That's what has been previously released, or may be sealed. That isn't even really 100% for sure. But the video is real. One way or another, that window is open because there is a contractor up there. They are doing work on that floor, and the window was open, and stuff was thrown out the window, likely into a dumpster down below. You know, when you go to a construction site and they sometimes put a dumpster down on the ground, it looks like that's what was going on. I can only say that other White House officials had previously acknowledged that it was real. And Trump today is like, no, that's not real. That's AI. So this is where he lives now. And he lived there before. And so he knows the house. He was just up on the roof the other day, wandering around, doing whatever. And people were saying, don't jump. So this just shows you that how bad it has become. Even Trump doesn't know if a video is real or fake AI generated a video of what's going on in his own house where he lives, the White House, and works every day. Well, almost every day. He knows the floor, knows that they're supposed to be sealed up there. We've heard that before. But in this case, I guess the window was opened for the construction and renovations that are taking place up there. So it's true, not fake. Well, I don't know. How much more news do you want tonight? Can you take any more? Mark Carney. He appeared on a podcast with Anthony Scaramucci. Few of the clips from that getting a lot of traction online. It's interesting to me because, again, here you have a Canadian politician, prime minister, trying to save the country from becoming the 51st state. And in order to do that, he is going to U.S. live streamers, podcasters, social media influencers to get his message out, appearing on a live stream show. I've got this clip here. Oops. Yeah, with Scaramucci. Do you remember Scaramucci? He was the White House press secretary for Trump 1.0. I think he had that position for all of about, I don't know, 10 seconds. He was only there for a day or two or something in that range. And then he had a falling out with Trump. And now he's one of Trump's most vocal critics. And he's here talking about Pierre Poilievre with Mark Carney, basically saying that Poilievre is sort of like the Canadian version of Donald Trump. And in the other clips that I've seen from this, Carney is saying that, well, some people think the political right is on the rise and that it's a serious threat. He's saying that it isn't really working. People on the right may think it's working, but it really isn't. And that's largely because, and I have to agree to a degree, that the messaging being used by Poilievre, the conservatives, it's negative, 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 negative. It's tearing the country down. Well, he is using positivity or a more positive message to try to build the country up. And that was absolutely a factor in the last election. Because it isn't the Canadian way. Anyway, let's listen to what this short clip is about.
I would probably go after Mark on, and again, Mark, forgive me, but I would probably go after you that you left the country, you were at the Bank of England. You know, it's not a carpetbagger label because you're a Canadian native and a Canadian citizen, but I would try to position you that you're out of touch with the mainstream common citizen in Canada. That's probably what I would try to do. And your response to that would be?
Well, my response would be twofold. One is that I'm not, because I live here and work here, and I'm, you know, my life has been in service, or most of my life in Canada has been in service of those of Canadians. And then secondly, who's more in touch with everyday Canadians? Someone like me, or someone who's been a lifelong politician, who lives in a taxpayer-funded mansion, who's driven around by a chauffeur and bodyguard, who has a lifetime, you know, pension paid by Canadian taxpayers, and whose diet of news is from the United States, is Fox News, whose favorite people are podcasters in the U.S., and who, if you subbed out, if you could swap out Canada, if you swapped in America for Canada in most of his talking points, you'd think, okay, this is Trump, this is MAGA.
I'm not.
So that's the flavor of politics in Canada today, and it's taking on more and more an American tone, even as the Prime Minister himself tries to assert Canadian sovereignty and preserve it. So who knows where it's all going? I don't know. I do know this. There was a great air show over the weekend in Toronto, the Canadian International Air Show. And I used to love going to the air show in London, Ontario, the London International Air Show, when I was a kid, which was a really great air show when I was young. Probably every bit as good as the Canadian International Air Show in Toronto. And what we're going to do here now is just give you a little taste of the Canadian snowbirds as we bring tonight's Maverick News broadcast to an end. I will see you guys back here tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
If you are sleeping in a position like this, you are wrecking your body and your breathing.
With that, we'll wrap it up. I will see you guys back here tomorrow. Until then, here's CAC, Captain Ass Kicker. See you tomorrow.
Y'all better stand back. He's laced up his boots, cracked open a cold one, and somebody's about to get it. C-A-K! Well, he rolls into town on a Harley so loud, with a stars and stripes cape and a jaw like a plow. Don't need no laser beams, no high-tech tricks. He just winds up that boot and lets it fly real quick. He kicks ass to the left, kicks ass to the right. Captain Ass Kicker's looking for a fight. From sundown to sunrise, he'll brawl and bite, 'cause Captain Ass Kicker is alright. He's the outlaw hero of this one-horse town, putting punks in their place, laying bad guys down. Ain't no Cape Crusader wearing tights and blush, just a trucker hat and a boot full of hush. He kicks ass in the morning, kicks ass at night. C-A-K, don't care if you're wrong or right. You run your mouth, he's quick to ignite. Yeah, Captain Ass Kicker is died right. He don't fly, he don't swing from no thread. He'll just kick your ego straight out of your head. Justice don't come with a judge and a gavel. It comes with a boot and a trail of gravel. He's banned from 6 states and a Waffle House, but the people still cheer when he clears the louds. He don't play nice, don't read no scripts. He just cocked his foot. Oh, there it ripped! He kicks ass in the east, kicks ass in the west. C-A-K, don't sleep, he don't need rest. If there's trouble brewing, he's your invite. Captain Ass Kicker is bringing the fight. So when the night gets rough and the law's too slow, you better call on the man with a steel-toed glow. Captain Ass Kicker, kicking ass since the day he learned to walk.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.